Okay, so I'm back for part 2. And just to recap, I'm investigating the energies that I've been feeling in my body over the past week and really up to the 777 portal that was yesterday. And I did find an explanation for it from Kat in Sacred Soul Rising, where she was saying that the crown, third eye, and the throat chakra were being activated, opening up to a new light frequency. And that the symptoms that I was having, the exhaustion, and I was feeling this interesting, blissful, like blissed out kind of feeling. So I just wanted more information on it, and I wasn't sure really how to do that. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do some internal investigation. I'm going to use my process of using tarot and oracle cards that I have been using and just investigate this energy a little deeper. So I'm going to show the cards that I've pulled so far. So the first top row, we've got past, present, future energies. So I used, what was this? The Psychic Tarot of the Heart, Sacred Rebels Oracle, and the Grail Tarot. So this one's the Psychic Heart Tarot. So for the first one we had Detach, and then Blossom, and then Third Eye Chakra. So that was just basically a reiteration of, yes, there's this activation happening, Third Eye Chakra activation happening, and to get to this point where we've got the activation, having to detach from previous paradigms of attachments to patterns of thought patterns, emotional patterns, any emotional trauma stored in the body, that all had to be let go. Also detaching from the 3D world, because you can see we're stepping out away from this winter scene into basically this portal of energy. Okay, so then this follows down in the same past, present, future. And I was asking, what am I experiencing here? So we're just getting more clarification on the top row. We've got the Sacred Fool. So coming into this sacred authenticity and vulnerability, letting go of being controlled by thought patterns and emotional patterns. Okay, and then this one, the Shock of the New. Okay, so new things happening here. We've got the throat chakra. You can hardly see it, but there's the third eye and the crown chakra are all being activated here. I'm trying to be able to see all of it. There we go. Okay, and then the last one here, every journey starts with a single step, and you can see there's that activation energy there, stepping forward into a new journey with a lot of possibility. Okay, so for the Grail Tarot, I was asking, so what is happening right now? Okay, so we've got the Seven of Lances. This guy has a wound, so he's been pierced by the wound, but he's also blessed by this angel figure and this figure here, just leaving the temple. So there's that struggle period where you're still dealing with detaching from the thoughts and emotions. And when the emotional patterns come up, it feels like you've been wounded, but it's not something that's happening in the present. It's something from the past, or something that could even be released from that was stored in your DNA. Okay, so in the middle here we have the Ten of Swords, right? But he's got all the thoughts, which are represented by the swords, and instead of the thoughts piercing him, he's walking and moving forward, holding the thoughts. Yeah, it's been a bit of a bloody battle here. But with the newfound knowledge of how to detach from thoughts, detach from paradigms, then they can move forward into this new season. And this is a new paradigm of thought. So third eye chakra, and I mentioned how that swords are very much related to thoughts. Well, this third eye chakra being activated is bringing in new divine wisdom versus this kind of logic and knowledge that sure is great, but it has its limitations. So we're moving beyond that, and we're trying not to rush into it too much. So taking it nice and slow and steady, taking time to regroup, to take the rest and recovery that's needed in this process. So I have 2 more questions. What am I learning and how am I growing? Okay. So for the next one, the next deck, I'm going to use the Radiant Wilds Tarot. And I'm sorry, I think the text is backwards. I'll try and figure that out for next time so that the text isn't opposite. Okay, this is a really cool deck by Nat Gersberger. Fairly thick book. Very simplistic modern art themes. I saw it and I thought it was really cool. I thought maybe it would be too simplistic from what I saw in the flip throughs, but when I actually had the cards, there was a bit more dimension in the images than what I had initially seen. Okay, so we've got the format of past, present, future, like a 3-card spread, really relating into the present. Like, how does the past tie into the present? How does the future tie into the present? Because we're not predicting anything here. We're just working with the current energy and how that's projecting outwards. Because remember, on an existential level, we exist in the present. If you want to really start working hard at detaching from thought, detaching from the identity of self, you can discover that time doesn't exist, that the past doesn't exist, and the future doesn't exist. It all exists in the present. So we have the Chariot. Very cool. So the question here is, what am I learning? And this is the first card, so it's more related to how the past relates to the present. We've got a major arcana. Okay, I'm going to try and hold it up and read it. So, I pull the reins of my life, taking the reins, fortitude, discipline. So you've got the 2 opposing twin sphinxes, and it says the chariot's harness is the galactic road itself, which yokes them to a fort embellished with a crescent moon. Its gate opens to a new realm of infinite space, while a fiery sun illuminates the scene. Okay, so this is really cool. I love this imagery because it's very simple, but there's lots of symbols to pull on here. And this guidebook has light and shadow. Okay, so it says you know that there is only one way to access your personal expansion. The Chariot asks you to cultivate a fiery discipline on your path towards what you want. The rewards will be infinite, but the road that you are forming is winding and needs your full concentration. Yeah. Let your willpower illuminate the journey to the cosmic gate you're about to reach. Very cool. The infinite reality you want to experience is worth crossing deserts for. So this is really cool. We've got some very fancy language in here. And yeah, fancy language can be helpful when it inspires us to move forward towards that. And then we can also stay grounded in knowing, yep, we're just human and this is part of our daily experience, but we can gradually build up our daily experience to have more magic as we realize and become aware of more of the magic within us. Okay, so there's a bit of a shadow aspect to it here. And it says, the truth is no one really knows what they're doing most of the time. We're just all floating along the universe's ever-changing currents. You don't need to know each step of the path as long as you are willing to explore it. Okay, so don't be too controlled and narrow-minded in your life, and keep an open mind. Yeah, there's definitely, in this card, we see discipline, but also openness to the unknown. The colors in these cards, that they don't match in terms of color palette. I think it's kind of funny because normally I would choose things that match together, but okay, so I think I'm going to grab this, making connections between the cards. So we've got the detach from the old paradigms to move into infinite possibilities. Oh, hello, Go Mystical, just joined. If you want to share any of your experiences with tarot or oracle, you can go ahead. It's kind of interesting joining. I'm doing a reading. Kind of interesting joining in the middle. Hopefully, maybe there's something that's interesting. Okay, so the second card is this Seven of Wands. Okay, so I'm going to read from the guidebook. Well, hopefully you can see the imagery. It says, I lead with authenticity. So this portrays a woman's marked face. Oh, it has symbols on it. Interesting. The symbols are kind of overlaid. Don't think you can see it. Overlaid on top of the image of the face, so it wasn't immediately obvious. So the woman's face emerging from the top of a dune in tandem with the sun's rising behind her. At the bottom of the dune, diverse hands reach for the woman and her place. They envy her radiance, for she exudes colorful rays that fill the skies. And her presence remains strong. It takes more than a few covetous challengers to rattle her. Okay. that was just describing the card, which is, it's nice when the guidebook describes the card. This is the Radiant Wilds Tarot, and this is just the guidebook. So what is so interesting about this card is that it's demonstrating and showing this feminine beauty and magnetism. It's when the feminine really stands into her power. And I think it's really interesting that we have this, like this, and it says they're covetous of her position, but let's call it that she has this magnetic charisma. And this is really cool because this has nothing to do with physical appearance. Although maybe you put effort into your appearance as a reflection of you showing up in your feminine power, not necessarily, because the beauty here radiates from within. And I really feel this strongly. I'm feeling that stepping into really acknowledging and feeling that feminine power and beauty. So we don't only have our physical body, there's also the emotional body, the spiritual body, the mental body. And the thing is that we tend to be so focused on the physical that we forget about the rest. And you look at someone who's very good looking. I've known this with some guys. They're very good looking, but they're very, very insecure, which is weird because they get a lot of female attention, but they've never put the effort into developing their emotional body. They've never put the effort into conversational skills. Like your mental body, I'm going to say, is, you know, a lot of what you, if you spend time with your hobbies and learning new things and you've got interesting things to talk about and you study different things, it makes you a really interesting person, and also it adds to your ability to add perspectives and think about the world in different ways. So having that, and of course you can become better as you acquire more knowledge. You've got your, like there's two kinds of IQ. There, in terms, I'm not going to talk about emotional IQ, I'm just going to talk about like the mental IQ. There is the fluid, which is ability to learn, and then there is the static, which is what you've already learned. And even if maybe you don't pick up things really well, over time, if you spend a lot of time in a certain field studying it, then you can develop amass such a wealth of knowledge and wisdom about it that you can actually take it into different areas. And we all love to engage in conversations with people who have this wealth of knowledge. So there's the mental and there's the emotional, and that can be related a lot to like emotions stored in the body. You can, when people repress them, and you know, it comes out in weird ways, or you can sense their insecurity. And that's something that's really hard to hide. Like, you know, maybe someone who's really insecure will be so obsessed with their own insecurity that they can't really see it in others, but it's fairly obvious. And then the spiritual, and I can sense that in terms of that inspiration when you're really going beyond what, you know, the current paradigm is, and you're tapping into that like divine energies, so peace, joy, and you're getting into that elevated level. When you encounter the divine part of yourself, it can also force a lot of the stuff that needs to be purged, so that can be unpleasant too, and doesn't necessarily mean that you're moving backwards. So here's someone really stepping into their power. And then, yeah, you can deal with envy, you can deal with jealousy, And then it talks about really standing firm in your own power. You don't need to overly explain to other people. You don't need to justify. You can really tap into your own intuition and inner knowing. So there's a lot of maturity here and a lot of that goes on to bring you to this point. So the Chariot, we have discipline, and that discipline moves to a place of where we're stepping into a power, but it's not, personal power isn't obvious because it's an internal journey, not trying to enforce power over others. Like, for example, having lots of money and trying to push your weight around. This kind of power is the kind of magnetic power that no one can take away from you. You can't lose it, like you can lose money, and it's even more valuable than money. Another interesting thing is that stepping into your feminine power, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be the best expert on everything. You can have that feminine power, be definitely respected in whatever domain that you're working on, but there's that point where you don't need to feel intimidated by other people. You can be with and work with and be around other people who are at a very high level and still have confidence in what you're bringing, because really being able to embody that personal power is very challenging. It's somehow very relatable with the phase I'm stuck in. Awesome. I'm glad you could relate to it. Yeah. I think this is a very challenging journey, challenging inward journey, and sometimes doesn't come up until you're really faced with the circumstances that force you to really step into that. I'm trying not to cry. Oh. Okay, so the next card is the Hermit. I love the card of the Hermit. It's one that I have been in, being a hermit quite a bit, not really spending a lot of time with friends, really spending a lot of time to work on myself. Oh, and there's no face. It's just the cloak and then the galaxy instead of the face. Which is almost unsettling because it feels like looking into a mirror and then realizing you're not just human, you are infinite, you are, which is an ego death essentially, and that is it's difficult, can be very scary. So I'm gonna guess this is probably going to be talking about, oh, there's a frame or a doorway. So, stepping into a new frame of mind. I'm going to hold it up. Okay. Secret gifts await those deeply listening. Introspection, withdrawal, understanding, essence. The hermit unveils her face to reveal the bright light of a star among the infinite universe of her being. Her appearance is mirrored In the external world, with a star shining at her back, she is positioned in an unknown solitary landscape, guarding the entrance to yet another realm, an even brighter realm. Yeah, it talks about discovering what's within you, and it provides the brightness you need to see in the dark. The light that shines within mirrors the one without. What you carry is not separate from what's around you. Yeah, I think the hermit allows us to take a step away from the world that we live in and have this sense of introspection where we can reconnect to that level of the part of us that is divine, the part of us that can connect to the divine. Because we need to engage in the world around us. So we need to take care of all those kinds of issues, but then we also need to bring into our lives that beautiful, magical aspect of us. Okay, so the question here is, what am I learning? And I had like 3 cards, like the past, present, future. So there was like the discipline aspect, but also the letting go and trusting and surrendering, coming into personal power. And this one's in the future aspect. I'm going to say that this is not necessarily continuing to isolate, but it's an aspect of the personal power where you're standing alone in that you have so much magnetism and personal power that you stand out of the crowd. Yeah. So you can always adapt the meaning to something that feels good for you, because I like to combine the power of tarot to inspire ideas in terms of like a manifestation tool. This is what I'd like to show up in my life, so this is what I'm going to make the meaning to be. So you're not like, oh, is something bad gonna happen? Like, that's another aspect of personal power, not living out of fear. So you're not really rattled by stuff that's going on. Okay. So the next question, this is my last question. Usually when I do this for myself, it'll take about an hour and a half. And this is the part 2, so it's taken more than an hour and a half. I think the first part 1 was an hour and a half just because I was explaining extra stuff, but this is still fun. How am I growing? So I chose the runic tarot for this. It's the Viking themed tarot. It's almost video game-esque, but the illustrations are still very beautiful. There's no quality been spared for the illustrations. They're really, really gorgeous. I have not used this deck a ton. I'm bringing out my somewhat obscure decks today. It's very much got that Viking feel. And so the question is related to growth, so I thought, well, I'll choose a deck that has that element of challenge to it. So should expect some interesting cards to show up. And you really don't, if you want to do this yourself, you really don't need a bunch of decks. You only need one. But you should choose something with a good guidebook and something that you like. and that's in your budget. Some of them are quite expensive. Okay, how am I growing? So we've got the Six of Swords. Six of Swords is moving on from the past, moving to a different direction. You can see it's like the light at the end of the tunnel. Oh, this gives me the sense of perseverance. Learning perseverance, but on a new level. I guess, there's certain things that you become really good at in your life that is unique to you. So I was an athlete, so that aspect of sports and doing exercise, I'm confident enough that I'm not worried about, am I making progress or having security around that. Of course, there's other things that are more of a struggle for me. And yeah, I think developing and stepping into this new energy, it takes a lot of patience and perseverance, and stepping into the goals and things I want to move towards in my life, that takes patience and perseverance, and I'm not used to that. I have a couple of decks somewhere, but I love my Rider-Waite. Yeah, that's the standard. I think it helps a lot to, because so many decks are based off that, it helps to understand and have an image in your mind of what the traditional imagery is. There are lots of different versions of the Rider-Waite, like different clones to the so definitely less in the guidebook than the other ones. But I think this is quite cool because it has the runes on it as well, and the meanings associated with the runes. A seafaring Viking sets out for new lands in a river. They pilot a single longship. The Viking has placed 6 swords in the bow of their craft. Each one represents a different skill and trait. The waters are calm for the moment, and the sun casts a bright light over the land and terrain. It looks like this journey will be smooth and easy, no warnings in the distant water. Okay, so it's talking about a journey taking place, and they're headed towards the sun, moving towards brighter futures. Moving to a higher plane, let go of the past. Oh, okay, so the real meaning from here, for me at least, comes from the reversed meaning. So you can use both the upright and reverse meanings to take what you want from it. The reversed is stuck in a place, uncertainty, anxiety, mental baggage. And so I can see how there's been beliefs that have been holding me back. So, for example, limiting beliefs in saying, oh, I can't do this, and having doubt about it. And also like attachment to kind of staying in the status quo and not taking risks. And there's like fear and these beliefs that come up with it. If I'm perfectly honest, I also get negative thoughts about potentially having a relationship with someone and imagining scenarios that I don't want to have. Like just, the mind being like, I have to potentially prepare for this situation, which is pointless because it might not even happen. And I don't want to prep myself for that, like focus on it so much that it actually ends up happening. And I can see that, and yeah, that's part of life, to have that awareness that you're going through that and feeling it, but also it's going to take time. Same, yeah. Oh, it's hard to be honest about what you're dealing with, but if you're honest, then you'll find like there's other people who are dealing with that too. And maybe we're becoming better at actually being honest with ourselves and others, and not trying to seem like we always have it all together. Because then it's lonely, right? Okay. Yeah, it's really scary. Yeah. Yeah, there's always that honoring what you want to keep to yourself, and that you always have the right to do that. But then also take the opportunity to share, and when it's a safe environment. Yeah, one day at a time. Yeah. I kind of like this card because it's optimistic. There's calm waters ahead. Wow, okay, so we did get the Ten of Swords. But I've also got the Ten of Swords in a different deck. This was the Grail Tarot. Not gonna freak out because I got the Ten of Swords. It's a beautiful card. It's cool, it is. Yeah. Lots going on there. Okay, definitely have to read the guidebook for this one. Okay, so lots of swords scattered on the ground, but it's not a recent battle. It seems more like a burial ground than anything else. All things must come to an end. Something needs to go to make way for the next step of your life's journey. Letting go. Surrender. So we've got different runes, and then oh, you said the Six of Swords was a beautiful card. Okay. It's like, well, we're open-minded today. Yeah, Six of Swords is beautiful. Okay. So when you combine the runes, I'm not sure exactly which one, maybe it's all of them. When you combine them all together, it means they show the fears and hopes that connect us as humans and how they keep us apart. That's so interesting. Okay. So, how am I growing? Yeah, well, to put it succinctly, putting to death everything that was part of an old identity, a past identity. Okay, so here's the theme of ego death that's showing up here. Putting the old identity behind and moving into this new identity, which is something I've really been thinking about and focused on lately. Wow. Okay, so that's challenging. And I chose this deck because I expected it to challenge me. Okay. Oh my goodness. What is this? Is that 8 of Wands? Very interesting character. Yeah, 8 of Wands. An elder Viking takes a break from reading their book. They wear a traveling cloak over a tunic. Kohl darkens their eyes. It drips down their cheeks into their beard. Yeah. So 8 of Wands, this is the one where the wands are in motion. When this card appears in your life, everything around you moves quickly. I didn't recognize it because it looks so different than the Rider-Waite-Smith 8 of Wands. Use this newfound energy to motivate you to finish your projects. New opportunities might come your way, so pay attention to your intuition. Act with bravery, harness your power. Take time to set intentions. Change is coming. Okay. I like this. So, getting ready for fast movement. Yeah. And we've got the every journey starts with a single step. So this is related to the journey. Yeah, so that's the last card I had planned for this. I am going to... I don't have a beautiful setup for my cards right now, but I'm just going to go through them and do an overview. I've got past, present, future, and then... Let me grab my questions. I've got just basically a general idea. What am I experiencing? What is happening? What am I learning? And how I'm growing was the last question. So I just extended it and created more clarification on the basic 3-card spread. So to recap, detaching from old paradigms and stepping into this new energy of really this sacred feminine, releasing everything that's been controlling, stepping into power, releasing old wounds, and moving from this disciplined space to a space of opportunity and expansion. And then for this one, it's this a level of awakening, and it's this new energy is a bit shocking, but we've got the reflection. This is so cool that I was asking about the crown, third eye chakra, and throat chakra, and I was wondering, like, how does this relate to me? When I pulled the cards for myself, the third eye chakra showed up, and we've got the throat, third eye, and crown chakra showing up in this card. So I was like, oh wow, this is cool. It's like what I heard someone else talk about, I can see that, yeah, it's happening in my life too. And then we've got these 10 of Swords. So there's been some challenging lessons, but then that's really bringing the personal power online, is stepping into that power, which I love it. I love it. And I have really this sense of like, this is the lessons and things from the past, and it's not like, ooh, this is really something I'm gonna have to move through. But it's more like, these are the tools and the skills that I need to move forward. Okay, so for this column, we've got the third eye chakra, moving forward in the journey. And this one is the Knight of Swords. So, Knight of Swords and the Eight of Wands, got them moving quickly, and the Hermit, which I see very much as that inner wisdom. So with the Swords theme, there is the changing the paradigms and beliefs, really the mind, and taking it from human knowledge to divine wisdom and refining that and growing that. Okay, so that's it. It's quite long, but made it through it. And see you next time. Thanks for joining.